Warm welcome to Laura Bailey, who has been my personal trainer for a little while. So does fitness, also nutrition and weight management. If you haven't come across me before, I'm Tessa, and I'm a yoga teacher and I teach hyperpressives. And so warm welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I wanted to have this conversation because I got into doing weights more than 2 years ago. And it was particularly thinking about my future health as I get older and thinking about keeping my muscle mass, looking after my bones. And also, sometimes you see older people and they sort of start to collapse forwards. And I just thought I really want to keep that strength in my body. So that's when I thought, right, it's time to get to the other side of the gym.
into the scary weights area.
Yeah, because often in the gym I go to at the moment, it is mainly men that are on that side of the gym. And I think that can be off-putting for people. But I've found actually, once you start going there, they tend to be really friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And yeah, thank you so much for opening up this forum to talk about it, because it's so important. And yeah, one of my main missions, as every woman I'm sure that's working in this industry, is to get as many women into that weights area as possible, and to try and get over that fear and trepidation, and actually, yeah, just get in and start doing something.
Because while we're talking about it, I mean, I have noticed that there's different sounds that come from that part of the gym. There can
Yeah,
be lots of kind of clanging, like when somebody finishes with the weight machines, it can go bang and a really loud noise, or it might be the sounds of the actual people really,
I was going to
working
say
with.
it's probably me grunting.
Yeah, they often can be really loud grunts and people are working really hard. And that can be quite different from where the running machines are and the cross trainers. But actually, just to say right up front, you don't have to go to a gym to do weights. You can have routines at home as well, can't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think, yeah, for anyone that's at home and thinks they want to start doing some weight training, or we could just call it resistance training, you can actually get an awful lot just through body weight. You don't need to have a weight at all. As you know, on your own journey, learning to do press ups, you don't need any weights to do that. And lunges, and there's all sorts of things we can do at home. But I think once you do start to progress, and a couple of dumbbells and a kettlebell, and you can get a full body workout. You don't have to have lots of kit, but actually learning to lift some weight along with your body weight is ideal.
Because it's really important for everyday life, right? You sort of, whether you've got kids that are smaller and need picking up still, or you want to do stuff around the garden and be able to do anything that needs doing, or you get a really massive parcel delivered by somebody. Like this happened to me not so long ago. I needed a new top to my bird bath, and the delivery guy came to the door and was like, "Oh, is your husband here to take this in?" I was like, "No, I can do it myself, thank you."
And isn't that a great feeling? I totally get that, of people looking at you and saying, "Oh, you're quite small,"
It also
and
happened at the hardware store, and I really loved the gentleman there. But I was buying those blocks for the water softener, because in where I live, it's very, very hard water. So we've got a water softener and you need to replace the blocks quite often. And each one, I think I'm right in saying, is 5 kg. So I said to him, "Oh, I'll take 4 of those." And he said, "Oh, okay, well, if you bring your car around the back, I'll put them in the boot for you." And I was like, "Well, no, actually, my car's on the other side of the road." And he was like, "Oh, well, no, drive round." I said, "I'll be fine, honestly." And he didn't believe me. And I said,
really,
in the end, "Well, I lift weights. I'm stronger than I look." And off I walked
really happy.
with
Yeah,
all 4 of them.
rightly so. But I think that's another part of fitness that's kind of underestimated, is our need to stay fit and strong for activity of daily living. So, like say, carrying the shopping, things like that, and also you know, as we age, you know, you and I are both lucky enough, we've still got our mums, but you can see them as they get older. And if my mum is watching this, I love her dearly. But she you know, we get if we don't protect our muscle mass and protect our bones, then we will become frail as we get older. And you see more and more that the highest one of the massive problems for the NHS is the risk of falls. So doing things like carrying the shopping, moving heavy things, it really helps us as we age to stay fit and healthy, like as long as possible.
Yeah, because I always say to my parents, you use it or you lose it. And
Yeah.
even with things like standing up out of a chair, elderly relative in the past used to have one of those chairs that would help push you up out of it, because that person no longer had the strength to push down through the feet and get out of the chair. Well, that completely changes your quality of life if you don't have that freedom of movement. So for me, it's not so much about how I look now. It's very much about the future and the quality of life I want to have as I get older, and hopefully, you know, with grandchildren, still being able to be active with my grandchildren.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, showing that example to your girls and, you know, our children and I hope that we will become the new generation of older women. I think, you know, one of my heroines is just that American lady, Joan, or whatever her name is, but who started weight training at the age of 70. And that's amazing.
If anybody wants to look her up on Instagram, it's Train with Joan, and she is a complete inspiration, because it's not that she has done this all her life. She came to it, like you say, at 70, and she looks incredible, and it's like a whole new life that she has now.
yeah, should go.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about is, I think sometimes there's a barrier around starting with the resistance training, because people think, if I start doing weights, I'm going to start looking muscly, and I don't want to look muscly. I want to look feminine, or I'm not going to look nice in a summer dress. Or what would you say about that?
Yeah, well, I think, well, I'd say first of all, probably the proof is in the pudding, in that I've been weight training quite intensely now for 5 years. And it's really difficult to look really muscly. And it just doesn't happen like that. And you know, it is those pictures that we see of people looking really muscly like that is because, you know, that you have to train very, very hard to you have to have a very strict diet. If you're talking about sort of looking like a bodybuilder or something like that, you know, so whereas for most of us, what we do, you know, what will happen if you start to strength train and you do it in association with eating well and a healthy, balanced diet, then you will see body composition changes. But for most people, that would just be that they can see that they've probably lost a little bit of body fat and they look a little bit more toned. But to actually look muscly, is very, very difficult to achieve. You've got to really go some. So yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, don't know how else to explain it other than, yeah.
No, I
And
think that's reassuring, I think, to people who just thought, if I head over to that other part of the gym, or I start lifting heavier things, I'm not going to look the way that I want to look. And before we came on, we were talking about perimenopause and menopausal symptoms and sort of weight gain that often happens. And I think that can be quite a shock, because you might have been doing exercise that has worked for you. You might have been a runner, or who knows, cyclist, and then suddenly it seems very common that you get to that certain point in your life where the hormones really start to change, and then suddenly there's weight that you can't shift, and what you were doing before doesn't seem to work anymore.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one for people, for women particularly, and it can be a cause of real frustration. And I think there's a couple of things to understand, again, which we were chatting through, which was it's a term that called progressive overload, which means that we do have to continually challenge our bodies, and because our bodies are very clever and they just get used to things, so that's why you can see people in the gym for years and years and years and they never look any different. Certainly in men's cases, they don't have to go through our lovely hormonal changes. But so that's one point, is that we do need to continually challenge our bodies and what we're doing with them, but particularly as we enter the perimenopause and the menopause, as our hormones dip, things change and we do have to do things differently. Yeah, so the dip in estrogen, as you know well, is it has a knock-on effect to all sorts of things, to our mood, to our sleep, you know, to where, you know, to how we just generally feel about things.
The other thing that I noticed, sort of talking about hormones, you know, obviously in the end, the menopause is defined by that decreasing estrogen, but if somebody's got a natural cycle, they also are experiencing a dip in estrogen each month. And what I really found, because when we started, we were really kind of charting very closely for everything that I was doing and the weight gains, in terms of how much I was lifting. Got a little weight here.
Oh, you're so impressed.
I was feeling jealous of all your equipment in the back.
Oh yeah. I didn't, yeah, go and pick up a dumbbell. Yeah.
But because we were tracking really carefully, what I noticed was that at certain parts of my cycle, I just couldn't actually lift as much.
Yeah.
But whereas around ovulation with more estrogen, that's where I felt strongest. And I think that's borne out in the research, that you can get the kind of biggest gains in terms of weights that you're lifting around that ovulation time. So that was really interesting to me, that there's this kind of really physical, visceral kind of effect of my cycle on my body, which if somebody was on hormonal contraception and they weren't having a breakthrough bleed and they just kept on they might not experience that because their hormones are artificially kind of being kept at a certain level. But I think it's really important to kind of bear that in mind, because I know at the beginning I was, feeling really frustrated with myself. Like, I feel like I've gone backwards, but actually it's just really being aware of your body's natural cycles. And I think it's so important to keep a record of what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well as, I mean, I you know, I am menopausal, so, or, you know, I don't have periods anymore. But I do still get those dips of energy, and, you know, that might be all sorts of things related. But for me, I guess I understand that it's my non-negotiable. So it doesn't matter if I've only had 4 hours sleep or if I've been awake all night in hot sweats. And, you know, I still, because in my mind, I think, and I think you experience this yourself, you're like, well, I can't possibly do that because I just can't do it because it's too difficult. And actually, it's amazing. You can do it. And, but you might not be able to have, you know, like you say, lift as big a weight, or, you know, though actually I think probably one of my best sessions is probably on like 3 or 4 hours sleep. It's like crazy.
Yeah, because I think sometimes I go and I think, I don't have much time, or I don't know, I'm feeling a bit low in energy today. I'll just go and I'll just do a shorter session today. But I make sure I get to the gym. And once I'm there, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to do this and this and this.
You
and
find some energy. Yeah, but brilliant. But a lot of it is about just, making sure that you get there. And a little bit, something's better than nothing, always.
I like what you said about it being non-negotiable. I think, you know, if it's in your diary, it's, you know, it's not something you fit in if you can. It's kind of, it's integral to my self-care, really. And what I've noticed is that as I physically got stronger, I've also felt psychologically stronger. I think it's just, there's something about oh wow, look, I can actually lift this weight. It has that ripple out effect in how you feel.
Yeah, I think so. And also I think when we first started training together, it was learning. I'm probably I find with a lot of the ladies when I first start, it can be quite scary to go from doing your normal exercise, and then suddenly I'm saying to you, no, I really want this to hurt, not in a horrible way, but I really want to see your like angry face, which you showed me quite a few times. But actually, it's a bit out of our comfort zone as women to feel really strong. But actually, it's quite liberating, and I think I find certainly that sometimes if I'm if I'm having a bad day and it's all to get in the gym and to safely lift some heavy weight it is really liberating, and and it makes you feel so much better.
And I think also that focus that like while you're actually doing it, you're having to concentrate on good technique and putting your all into it. What I find really helps me is thinking about the muscle groups that need to engage. And I sometimes kind of get some extra boost then. So I'm really focusing on what's going on. And then everything else that's happening in life just goes to the background for a while. And
Yeah,
I
brilliant.
tend not to listen to music. It's kind of just my chance to completely switch off from my phone. I leave it in the locker. Whereas I know, I think you prefer to have music and you'll have your power tracks on and everything.
My power tracks to try and get me through a pull-up. But I think you have a really good point, and that's one of the amazing benefits of strength training is that mental health benefit of being able to switch off. And I was listening to a podcast the other day actually about I liken it to yoga in that way of that I know when I come to your amazing yoga classes, I've never been able to fall asleep as quickly as I can there, just being able to like switch off. But strength training in a different way to focus your mind on something else, like you say, and I think having because you do have to think about technique and doing it safely and properly, which is a good way of making you think about something else.
And I think another sort of myth that's around, which happens with yoga as well, is that people think, oh, in order to go to a yoga class, I need to look a certain way. It's almost like I need to already be good at yoga to go to yoga. But the whole point is that you've got to start somewhere, and you don't have to be flexible to go to yoga. You don't have to be strong to start lifting weight. It's a journey.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's sort of going back to my first point about body weight. When I went to a fitness conference in Brighton last year, I think I said to you, and I did some of the training with the paratroopers, and it was all body weight only training. So it was amazing how so you don't need to start off really strong and lifting barbells like I've got in the background.
And I remember the first ever session I did where I'd never done any weights ever before. And I think it was a bench press I was trying to do. And with the weight in my hand, I was sort of wobbling. It's like my arm didn't know what to do or how to respond to this weight.
Yeah.
That was the first rep. By the second rep, already my body had started to understand. It was incredible. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
Going
It's
like a
that
child.
mind muscle connection of actually,
yeah. So I think people will be surprised if they've never done it before. And I think what really helps is to have somebody with you. So it might be, you could have a gym buddy if you're going to the gym, or you go around to somebody else's house and you do a session in their lounge. But because you've got that person with you, you'll stick with it and they'll motivate you. Go on. But what I've seen a little bit in the gym that I go to is sometimes people look quite lost and they don't know really how to use the machines around. And I think always just grabs a member of staff and say, I want to be able to use this safely, will you talk me through it? But my experience is that it's really worth with a trainer, because they'll see what your particular goals are, and yeah, it's been invaluable working with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a couple of points there. Yeah, definitely for people that are going to a gym and do feel a bit lost. Like you said at the beginning, even in the scary weights area, there were always people that will help you, but particularly the staff. Yeah, because you can get so much out of it, just with a few pointers. And I often see people and think, oh, shall I go and give them a pointer? But I don't want to do that uninvited. But yeah, yeah, or going with a friend, like you say. And yeah, and then I think like with you, I think what's been brilliant and what one of my aims is really to to clearly not everybody can afford to have a personal trainer all the time, but to do sessions, a certain amount of sessions, so that you feel confident and that you feel that you can um go away and do that on your own is invaluable, really. So I think it doesn't take a huge amount of you can just go learn the basics and then go and follow on and do that on your own, but so that you are doing it properly. Because I do see a lot of people, particularly the men in our gym, who have injured themselves. And I think we were talking about this again, going back to sort of hormonal changes, that it is a lot easier to injure ourselves as we get older, as our hormones change. So we do need to be a bit careful about that.
Yeah, you're just gradually, incrementally adding the weight. And because that's something else I wanted to mention was around the pelvic floor, because whether it's my client group sort of postnatally, maybe you're a new mum and your body's still settling after all the hormones of pregnancy. If you're still breastfeeding, the relaxin will still be, there'll be different hormones affecting your body for a while and in a slightly softer state. But also in perimenopause, that decline in estrogen, I think, we need to be careful about our pelvic floors, because sometimes in those situations, it's almost like people are, well, it's just normal that I have issues with leaking, or, it's just something I have to put up with. And I really don't think that's right. It's common, but that doesn't mean that it's normal and you have to put up with it. And I think what's really good to understand is, if you kind of going back to something like, say, running after having had a baby and you experience leaking, it doesn't mean that's going to be your situation forever. It might just mean that the force as you're running through the body is a little bit too strong now, and there's things that you can do to support that. Or it might be as you begin to lift more weight, you might feel, oh gosh, I can kind of feel that down through the body. And maybe you need to pull back a little bit or check your technique is correct. So I think for me, it's just making sure people don't ignore those things and just think, oh, they're normal.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of help out there, obviously from yourself, and there's a lot of research now about things like that, and it's really important to make sure that it's not stopping us training, like you say, that we're sorting out those issues and making sure that we can still continue to exercise safely and get enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as people will be able to tell, I'm a complete convert to resistance training. What would you say have been the benefits for you? What do you enjoy most about it?
Oh yeah, it's a really good question, actually. I think I first came to weight training really quite late in life. So after I'd had my son Max, and I'd I'd I was I'd lost my job, things were not great, and I'd put on quite a lot of weight, and I was a bit lost, really, and I was really lucky to have found a wonderful personal trainer who just really helped me feel more confident in myself and feel that I could do it and that I could get back to feeling good about things. And I think that just by going to the gym and getting stronger, and feeling better about myself helped in everywhere other parts of my life. So yeah, it's been, for me, the mental benefits of what came first, and I think then followed on after the sort of physical benefits. But yeah, it was definitely a mental thing to me to go and start to feel better and more confident.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me about this. I hope
Thank
it sort of
you.
busted a few myths that people, or ideas people have about weights and resistance training. So thank you again.
Thank you, Tessa.